It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Hazbin Hotel. Now, on a surface level, these are two shows that you wouldn't really think are similar at all, but actually they're more alike than you would think. Now, I assume that if you're watching this, you probably already know about both shows, but just for posterity's sake, I'm going to add a little synopsis for both of them right here. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which from now on I'll just be referring to as Sunny, is an American sitcom that first aired in 2005, and at the time of me writing this, is working on its 17th season. It follows a group of close friends that own and operate a bar in South Philadelphia. The characters often create little plots and schemes while also offering an interesting satirical look at different aspects of American life, and also just being a genuinely funny show. Think of a more veiled version of South Park, with their little lessons at the end of every episode. Hazbin, on the other hand, is a relatively newer show, the pilot having been released in 2019 and the show proper in 2024. Now, it's important to mention that obviously it's not fair to compare a show as prolific as Sunny and a show that's as amateurish as Hazbin, but fuck it. Hazbin Hotel is an adult animated comedy show that revolves around Lucifer's daughter starring in a hotel to rehabilitate sinners and deal with the overpopulation problem in hell, all while attempting to wrangle a ragtag bunch of zany characters and try to beat an impossible time crunch set by heaven. Good God, that's a mouthful. Now that we've gotten a basic rundown of the plots of each show, it's time to understand why I'm comparing them in the first place. Simply put, Sunny succeeds in all the places Hazbin fails, and what I mean by that is it's a show with main protagonists that are horrible people, but are still likable without the writers trying too hard to portray them as such. It can handle sensitive topics like assault or harassment, drugs, bigotry, racism, horrible crimes, all without pushing too far, and at the end of the episode, you can still tell the writers don't agree with what the characters are doing. For example, in Season 2, Episode 3 of Sunny, Dennis and Deagle on Welfare, the two characters end up getting addicted to crack while attempting to cheat their way into the welfare system. They both then have to deal with all the setbacks that come from using the drug, and their addiction even ends up following them for the rest of the series. This is obviously a genuine, realistic depiction of how drugs like that can affect people. Whereas in Hazbin, one of the main characters, aptly named Angel Dust, also deals with a drug problem. This being with phencyclidine, or more commonly known, PCP or Angel Dust, which is a little bit too on the nose if you ask me. Now, personally, I feel like addictions, especially ones to hard drugs like PCP, shouldn't be taken as lightly as they are with Angel. It feels like he was simply thrown onto his character to be edgy or just make him out as more of a bad person, but frankly, it just ends up romanticizing substance abuse because of the way it doesn't really show the downsides of it. Especially since the show, and more specifically the character of Angel Dust himself, have a large following of young adults and especially children, who might see the representation of the drug in Hazbin and rationalize using it because of the show, e.g., Angel uses it and he's cool and I want to be like Angel, so I should use it too. And don't try to argue with me over it, because the same thing happened with sexually explicit behavior. Quick disclaimer, because I don't know where else to put this, but I am not looking into the creator's personal lives for this. I don't know if Pop, the creator of Hazbin, dealt with similar issues in her own life, because it doesn't matter if she did in the first place. Mature topics like the ones Hazbin attempts to tackle should be handled with a certain level of tact and seriousness that simply isn't put into the series. In fact, off the top of my head, the only mention of quote-unquote downsides of any of this is the song Poison, but not only is that mainly based around the abusive relationship that Angel is in, but as a former child myself, any information relayed in a song is in one ear and out the other. Now, here's the part where I was going to touch on the subject of SA in both series, but as a victim of similar abuse myself, I just don't think it's appropriate to talk about in a video like this, so I'm letting this segment sit this one out. But don't get me wrong, I do feel like Sunny handled the issue better, at least to me. Now, in Sunny, the gang already has pre-existing lore, like Charlie McDennis, for example, and they explain it to the viewer in a natural way that doesn't seem forced at all, using Frank. Frank is introduced in the first episode of the second season, Charlie Gets Crippled, and therefore doesn't know anything about what the gang has been doing up until that point. It's a clever way of explaining more complex plot points to the viewer without breaking character. Hazbin, however, decided to introduce the show with Charlie explaining her own backstory to herself. There isn't even an in-universe explanation for why she did this. Obviously, it breaks the show don't tell rule, and it's just stupid. They just as easily could have either had someone else do the narration, or given her someone to be explaining this to, like possibly Alistair, who, like Frank, was introduced to the main cast after everyone else had become acquainted. That doesn't make 100% sense, but it's still better than what we actually got, and I just pulled it out of my ass. This next segment, though, is my favorite part of the topic, comparing the characters and how they're handled in both shows. It might sound weird, me comparing a cannibalistic deer demon radio host to Danny DeVito, but their characters are actually surprisingly similar. Both characters come in after the core group is already established, which causes some of the other characters to dislike them and feel as if they're intruding. Both are considerably older than the other characters, have poor hygiene, are stuck in the past. The main group is financially dependent on them, have an incredibly shitty past that they only reveal in small segments, have a fatherly relationship with one or more of the protags, frequently gaslight people to their advantage, abuse indentured servitude to their advantage, and have 100% eaten human meat. Frank is more portrayed as a kooky, gross old man, and Alistair is meant to be more of a, how do I word this? A supporting antagonist, I guess? Like, sure, he helps with the hotel, but he 100% is either going to have a stupid backstabbing plot or an ushy-gushy mess where he can't bring himself to keep being an evil douche or whatever, and have a whole redemption arc thing. Or he dies. Guess which one I'm hoping for. But the point is, it's not really fair to compare the two. Still, I am an unstoppable force and logic is an immovable object, so I'm gonna keep on trucking, baby. Now, when Frank is being quote-unquote evil, it is a bit more of a reasonable comparison. For example, in Sunny Season 2, Episode 9, Charlie Goes America all over everybody's ass, Frank is given the ability to do anything he wants at the bar, legal or not, under the condition he does so in the basement. This starts out as him inviting a few people he knew from Vietnam when he owned a sweatshop there, which escalates to betting fingers, spouses' prosthetics, and eventually Russian roulette. Frank Reynolds, if you didn't already know, is scum of the earth. He's a horrible person, and he has no problem with that. But it still feels natural. When you sit down and hear about all the horrible things he's done, you could believe that he's a person that actually exists. Oppositional to that, you have Alistair. It's almost like he's trying too hard to be evil, with those moments he says something like he thinks people dying is funny or something. What a twisted fucking psychopath. Just a glimpse into his dark reality. A full stare into his twisted perspective would make Smo simply go insane, Lamau. He is trying too hard to be the Joker at his best. At his worst, he's an edgy love child between the Onceler and Jeff the Killer, which simply doesn't work because it's not 2008 anymore. He's cartoonishly evil and it just doesn't work. Not that that's what they were going for. Frankly, I don't know how they're trying to write him because it's not working. Okay, I think I got a little off topic there, but now we're going on to the lovable part. Tough, I know. While Frank is a terrible person morally, he's still an enjoyable character. Maybe it's his affinity for guns or his disgusting antics he gets into with Charlie, but you have to admit he is an entertaining character. That's how we've gotten memes like an egg in these trying times, the trash man, or it's smug or a mocks me. Alistair, however, it's a bit hard to see the appeal. It's probably his design, which is a bit lackluster if you ask me, and his personality is nothing to write home about either. I mean, what do we have? Really, I want you to think of 3 personality traits he has, and they can't include a symptom of antisocial personality disorder, the 1930s, or radio. There isn't much to pick from, is there? It's like Disney Pop was sitting there and went,
how can I make this guy the biggest one-dimensional amoral douche I ever made?
Okay, I'll admit, I mostly put this in here because they have the same name and I thought it was funny, but still. This mainly has to do with the way Charlie from Hazbin, who I'll be calling Charlie M to help with this confusion, is weirdly prone to anger despite her being portrayed as a Disney princess type character. For example, in the first episode of the series, Overture, if I remember correctly during Adam's song, banger by the way, she gets really pissed off in the middle of him explaining his argument, transforming into her Skibidi Sigma Alpha form. OMG guys, she's so likable and badass for... what? Almost escalating a simple conversation into violence because someone was relaying a decision that wasn't even 100% on him to her? The exterminations were a joined consensus between various other angels, not just Adam. He was just being a mouthpiece to explain to her what they were going to do. Like how Lucifer, or Charlie in this case, didn't represent every single decision every single denizen of hell made. I mean, sure, he was being a dick, but you need to remember, she was attempting to pitch the hotel to him. And also convince him that the Exorcist stopped massacring her people on a yearly basis. And back to her Disney princess attitude. Why, and more importantly, how does she even have it? I mean, from a writing standpoint, it's obviously because it creates a nice comedic but also intriguing contrast that helps her character stand out in the setting. But what I mean is in-universe. To have her keep such a naive and innocent outlook in life, you would have to assume that she had been sheltered from an early age. But in doing so, she wouldn't have all the know-how that she does on the exterminations. Editing witting here, so I'm pretty sure they did actually address this in the show. if not kind of vaguely, because the introduction begins with the story of Adam and Eve from the perspective of her parents more so, but it's obviously only based on what they've told her about how it went, because it's very propaganda-y, and which implies, at least to me, that she's been taught only about what they want her to know about it. She wasn't given the full story to keep them in a good light. And which is basically how she knows about the exterminations, but also doesn't, or but also believes that every sinner should quote unquote have the ability to be the opportunity to be redeemed, and also that people would even want to go to the hotel in the first place. I'm just keeping the next part in because I kind of went off on it, and I am not going through the effort to delete all that yapping. A good example of balancing both is Charlie Kelly from Sunny. His mother sheltered him so much that he's hardly a functioning human being in the modern day, but also neglected him enough while she was out being up. This caused him to not only get involved in the same illegal and downright deplorable behavior as the rest of the gang, but also not know half the things necessary to live a normal, successful life. This is actively addressed in the show, which makes sense. Hazbin is in its infancy, so it's possible they might address it, but probably not. It's not really known for its good writing. Oh, also, I was gonna do a segment for all the other characters, and also especially one that compared Angel and Dee because they're so similar. But I'm not going to because I was so tired. I'm so tired, and I'm either going to do a part 2 or just abandon this forever. So you'll know which one I do. Bye. Also subscribe right now or I'm gonna fucking explode. Oh no, you took too long to subscribe.